welcome in Week 7 WATD Fantasy Draft. Just 2 weeks left in the season. It's do or die time for a lot of teams around the South Shore. Latest set of power rankings is out, and everybody pretty much knows what they need to do now to get into the playoffs. So on that subject, head on over to 959watd.com now. You can see a full breakdown, full bubble watch, if you will, as we grind towards the closing of the regular season. We look at the latest power rankings and tell you what everybody needs to do to get in. So 959watd.com, or find us on SoundCloud, WATD Sports on SoundCloud, or actually it might still be Sports Exchange, but you can find it there. And while you're at it, go ahead and like and subscribe below to the sports to WATD Sports on YouTube. You can catch every draft up here. And with that, let me bring in Johnny and Brendan. Welcome in, boys. I don't know what's scarier, the fact that there's just 2 weeks left in the regular season, or the fact that we're starting to get to that point in the year where you're leaving the house and returning to the house in the dark.
Yeah, the dark. This dark thing is just no good.
Yeah, it's pretty dark out there, kid.
It's I mean, the season has blown by, which is, good and bad. Playoffs are exciting, but also seasonal depression is real. So in any case, we've got a fun one tonight. Johnny is going to pick first, Brendan is going to pick second, and I am going to pick third. A brief update as best we can with the standings. There are some outstanding results from each week, but to give you an update on how things have gone thus far this year, I took home top spot in weeks 1 and 2. Brendan got 3. Me and Johnny were separated by tenths of a point, with a couple outstanding results each in week 4. So TBD on that one. Johnny actually got it done in week 5. Thought Brendan had won, so he picked third last week. Turns out Johnny got the solo dub last week, and we're TBD on week 6. Assigning point value, just to give you a sense of where things are at. 3 points for a win, 2 for second, 1 for third. Johnny and I are at 10.5 points. Brendan, you are at 9, and it could either be. It's going to be Johnny at 11.5 through 6 weeks, and it'll either be Brendan with 12 and myself with 12.5, or Brendan with 11 and myself with 13.5. So pretty bunched up tight, which means that we've got a lot on the line here in our final weeks of the season, just like all of our teams on the South Shore. So without further ado, let's get into it. Johnny, you are on the clock. Number 1 overall pick in the Week 7 WATD Fantasy Draft.
I mean, I'm playing with house money. I don't think I won a week last year, so I'm already on cloud 9. I'm gonna go. See, this part of the season is always interesting because there's a lot of good matchups. There's a lot of good players. It's just an interesting matchup for them. I don't know how I feel about the result itself, but this guy played pretty well last week in a game you did, Quinn. I'm gonna go Brockton's running back, Walter Rodriguez. He's a guy who I think looked pretty good against Pinkerton. The result wasn't what Brockton wanted, but I think Walter played well, so hopefully he can continue that at New Bedford.
Got a touchdown there late too. It's been interesting. He and Turco have kind of split carries, and then he was the feature guy in that game. I think they're going to need him coming down the stretch here. I think that talked about a little bit on Tuesday night on the main event that playoffs are probably a pretty big long shot for Brockton, but you're still trying to secure a couple good results. They're still in play for the league title. So I think that's the most important thing for them, and Walter can help them do that. All right, Brendan, number 2.
Starting to run out of names here. We're at that point in the season, but I'm still going to pick a guy who hasn't been selected to this stage. I like the matchup this week for Randolph go against Brighton. I think they're going to run the ball, so I think Seneca Spencer, if I'm pronouncing it correct, will put maybe a touchdown, 60 yards. I think we could see something like that. Get some South Shore League action in there, and they're going up against a City League opponent. I expect a lot of running in this game.
super, super, super important game for Randolph too. They've got Brighton this week. They've got Cohasset next week. They have to win one of their last two to be playoff eligible. They're firmly in the top 16 in the power rankings. But this week certainly looks like an easier or a better opportunity than leaving it all for Cohasset in week 8, who could be in the exact same boat. So yeah, it's going to be important. Seneca comes off the board. I like the pick. All right, I'm going to go to my first pick, and I'll take the first quarterback off the board. And I think I'm going to go. I have a few different options listed here. Not sure who I want. I'm gonna go with Joe Schwartz out of Archie's. They've got a matchup here this week. They're fighting for their playoff life. I think that's going to kind of dictate a lot of my picks tonight. They've got a matchup here against Bishop Stang, a chance to eliminate Stang from playoff eligibility, and they need to get themselves into a playoff spot. So, give me Joe Schwartz. All right, Johnny, round 2.
I'm going to go to a wide receiver who I saw play 2 weeks ago. I wanted to take him last week, but they're on a bye. It's, again, a tough matchup. They're at home at least, but I'm going to go Thomas Whiteside, wide receiver from Oliver Ames. I mean, they were slinging it against Canton. It's a team that, hasn't had a win yet. They're definitely struggling overall as a team, but I was incredibly impressed with their offense. The Whiteside brothers, they were all over the field, so I'm going to go with Thomas this week.
Yeah, and we'll be on hand for that game. That's going to be Thursday night, tomorrow night, right here on, not right here. We're doing this on YouTube, so it's going to be on WBMS, our sister station. The tough matchup you're mentioning, Mansfield, a very good Mansfield team, although kind of surprisingly down this year given how much they returned. But Oliver Ames, Mansfield, 7 o'clock start on BMS. So thank you for that, Johnny. I'll be tracking those stats. All right, Brendan, number 2.
Going to stick with the South Shore League here, and a guy that we've talked about on this program a couple of times, but he's had either difficult matchups when we've done so, or in the case last week, this team didn't have a game. I'm going with Michael Wildfire out of Cohasset, going up against Mashpee, another team in Cohasset that needs to pick things up as they approach playoff season here. This is an opportunity against another South Shore League team that they've had success with in past years. We'll see how it goes. I think he's going to put up some numbers in this one.
Yeah, I was silently hoping that the matchup against Mashpee scared everybody off because I think it's a much better matchup for him next week. But I think getting him on the board here is big, Brennan. I mean, he's improved week to week. Yeah, they're going to be passing. Mashpee has quietly been really good this year, and I know they're right on the periphery of what we
always
we
good
cover.
Every 5 to 6 years. They go on a tear. It feels like 2017 they had a running back class that might have been matching with just about anyone out there.
Was that Devon Ford?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah,
I think he lit it up at Framingham State after or something like that.
I think there was a game. Playoff game, if I'm not mistaken, at Marciano Stadium where he had like 390 rushing yards, something crazy like that. That was the last time Mashpee really was this successful. It's been a little bit quieter under the radar this year, but again, another passing opportunity for Cohasset. I see a lot of offense in this game back and forth, and who's going to have to benefit from that is probably the quarterback.
I like it. Michael Wildfire off the board. Then won't be on my week 8 board, unfortunately. All right, I'm going to close out round 2 here. Let's see. You each have a running back, so I'm probably going to dip my toe into the wide receiver room. Give me Reed Bergameska out of Marshfield. He's kind of taken over as their number 1 receiver. It seems like he's been right there. Charlie Carroll has been good there too. But I like Reed in this matchup. Plymouth North, Marshfield's kind of trying to get themselves going. North showed a lot of people a lot with a shutout last week against Whitman Hanson. That was a hell of a performance. But Reed's been going off for a few weeks in a row. So I want Mr. Bergameska on my squad. So I'm going to take him. All right. Round 3, Johnny.
I'm going to take another wide receiver. I'm going to go to the Hingham Silver Lake game. I think I'm going to go with Chase Bailey out of Hingham. I just think that's, I wanted to take him, and that's more of a matchup thing. Obviously, they got Duxbury looming next week, and I think the Silver Lake game is a good opponent for them, so I'm going to go with Chase.
And I think similarly to what we've talked about earlier here, an important game for them too, because they need one more win to be eligible. And you certainly don't want to leave that to a week 8 matchup with Duxbury, who you haven't beaten in 15 years. So I think Chase Bailey could be a big piece of it. We'll see. We'll be there on Saturday. So there you go, Johnny. Teeing up the promos. We'll see you on Saturday, 3:15 live on 95.9 WATD. We will have Hangman Silver Lake, our high school Saturday for you. Very excited. All right, Brendan, your round 3 pick.
Yeah, and I'm starting to debate what I should go with here, but I'm going to go receiver, I think. And I'm going to go Catholic Conference. We've already taken BC High's top 2, I would say, off the board over the course of the year, but they've had guys who can really just step up and get a touchdown just any point. And I think Liam Callan is a candidate this week against St. John Shrewsbury. Team that BC High will be looking for revenge against, because St. John Shrewsbury in recent years has actually had their number. Things have flipped around for the Eagles this year, I think, though. They're starting to make their rebound and kind of return to relevance in that loaded conference. Still a ways to go before you match up with Xaverian and St. John's Prep, but Eagles are on the come up, and I think this is a good chance for them to get a win this week.
Yeah, that was a matchup that I had highlighted. I think that's a good pick. I think this should be a win. Big bounce back week for BC High, as you said. So I like the pick. All right. I'm going to dip my toe into the running back room. I'm going to go with Ryan Simonetti out of Abington. They got a matchup against EB, a team that is really struggling right now. And Abington's coming off of a huge win on Friday night against Rockland. Broke up a 6-game skid against the Dogs, a 4-year losing streak, and did it in emphatic fashion and just kind of re-announced themselves. I think people kind of slid them to the back burner after the Norwell loss, and now they're firmly back in the mix and they're fighting hard for. They can get as high as number 2, I think, in Division 6. So there's a lot on the line for them. I think this is a big week. And Ryan Simonetti, they didn't have Mason Nash last week, so that made Simonetti an even bigger feature in the offense. I don't know if Mason will be back, but I think either way, Ryan can get his. So give me Ryan Simonetti. Johnny, round 4.
Just to make your life easier, Clint, I'm going to go back to the Hingham Silver Lake game, but I'm going to go on the other side of the ball this time for a running back. I'm going to go Nolan Dickinson out of Silver Lake. I think they're going to, in order to be successful at Hingham, I think they're going to have to run the ball a little bit. And I'm going to look to Nolan to do that.
I like it. Good bloodlines. I think he's a young kid. I believe he's a sophomore. His brother John was excellent there for a couple of years. And he seems to be really coming on as the season's worn on. He's been all in the box scores the last couple of weeks. So good pick, Johnny. Brendan, round 4 pick for you.
Just going over the list here still. I'm going over my picks here, getting ready to run my option up to the board. Let Goodell make his announcement in a little bit.
Excellent stalling tactics.
I'm making
pick a name, Brennan. What are we doing here?
You know what? I'm going to look at a unique matchup here, and it's because I think North Quincy is going to have to pass the ball to compete with Scituate this upcoming week. Scituate really hot and cold. You never know what team you're going to get, as I rep a Scituate Sailors.
Yeah, that was like borderline blasphemy.
I know, right? Look at me over here, just trying not to show too much bias, Yeah. But I think this is a game where North Quincy has to pass the ball. Give me Cam Sampson this week.
I like it, Cam Sampson. Yeah, I was curious about this matchup. I didn't put somebody on my list for it, but I like the line of thinking, Brendan. I think it's a North Quincy team coming off of a big win against Pembroke. 3rd time this year that Pembroke has blown a 2-score lead. Incredibly frustrating. I know they've battled injuries a lot, but
they've been in every game they've played.
The line between
even the ones where the scores looked lopsided, there was a chance. Like for instance, against the Situate Sailors, aforementioned, it was a 1-score game. Midway through the third quarter, they had a chance to take the lead, and then a couple of bad breaks, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah.
Pembroke just not having its share of luck compared to past seasons.
No, so I think that for that reason, like record aside, I still think it's a really quality win for North Quincy. So I think they're coming and rolling. So I like Cam Sampson for you there, Brennan. All right, that'll bring me to my 4th round pick, and I'm going to close out the running back room or the wide receiver room. I'm going to close out the running back room. I'm going to go with Nathan Huey out of Milton. He has kind of taken over as their number 1 option out of the backfield. They're another team kind of in the same ilk as Abington, where they've got a number of different options and they can mix them all, and they do it a little bit differently. It's not triple option formation, obviously, but they got a lot of guys that can touch the ball. But Huey here in the last few weeks has taken over. So give me Nathan Huey. Round 5, Johnny.
I'm going to save my quarterback. I'm going to go running back again. It's an intriguing matchup for me. West Bridgewater, Blue Hills. I'm going to go with Tyler.
You already have your running backs.
Do I?
Yeah, you went Walter Ward. You just went Rowan Dickinson.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You need a quarterback and a defense.
Okay, I was 1 round behind mentally. That makes more sense. Okay, so quarterback, I am going to go. Now I'm all thrown off. Okay, I'm gonna go with Nate Goff from Quincy. They're playing at home against Plymouth South, which is kind of a tough matchup for them, but I think Nate will have a good game.
It's an important matchup for them. It's a have-to-have-it matchup. If you want to get into the playoffs, this kind of has to be it. Did a pretty big breakdown on Tuesday, but this is, I think, for both of these teams. I don't know that definitively whoever wins this game is getting into the playoffs, but definitively whoever loses this game is, in my view, out of the playoffs. So I think there's a lot riding on this matchup. It's going to depend in large part on the availability of Cassius Johnson. Haven't seen him for 2 weeks since he went down with the injury in the Hanover game. But that's, you forget that they lose him on the back end too, right? Like he's stepped in this year and been a part of a new look secondary. So his lack of availability is also helping Nate Goff. So I think good pick, Johnny. All right, Brendan.
I think I need a running back here. The other matchup that's important for both teams, I think, at this stage of the game, is the Abington East Bridgewater game. Will LeBlanc still is on the board. I think we can go with him this week. Expect both teams to be running the ball heavy in that one. The question is, will he find the end zone?
Yeah, this is what I think in the early goings of the season kind of made me cautious about Abington, right? I've got an Abington back on the board as well, and Simonetti, now LeBlanc on. There's just so many options. You just don't know in a given game who's going to get it. So I appreciate, Brendan, that we're playing a little Russian roulette together this weekend. All right, my 5th round pick. Everything else is closed out, so I might as well just get my defense here, be the first one off the board with a defense. And I am going to go. It's maybe a little. Well, we got them on the board. Yeah, you know what? You got all of them. All right, it's ambitious. They're coming off of a route, but give me Brockton. I think next week's probably the wiser week to go after the Boxers. New Bedford's not bad. It's not going to be a cakewalk the way it's been. But yeah, I don't know. I want it. I want the Boxers on the board they got Durfee next week, but I think New Bedford, this is an important week for them. You got to respond. You got to finish the season on a high note. You still feel like you can walk out with a league title. I think that does a ton for you, even if you don't make the playoffs. So I'll take the Boxers. Johnny, your final pick of the night in need of a defense.
I'm gonna go with a defense that has looked pretty good this year, especially the last 3 games. They gave up 8, 13, and 0 their last 3. I'm gonna go with West Bridgewater's defense. They're playing Blue Hills this week. Blue Hills is pretty good. I mean, they're both 4-2, so that'll be a really good matchup. But I just think West Bridgewater's defense is hot.
I like it. Found a way to get the Wildcats on the board one way or another. Yeah, they're peaking at the right time. I think they're number 5 right now, down in D7. That looks like a team that can do some damage. And yeah, I think good pick, Johnny. All right, Brendan, now your defense.
Going back to the Catholic Conference for my final pick of the night, I'm going to look at Xaverian this week, going up against Malden Catholic. We all, look at Malden Catholic in basketball season. That's a team that's always going to compete, but team that's kind of struggled for the most part when it comes to football over the last couple of seasons. Xaverian trying to get back on the winning track and get really hot before the Division I playoffs. Saw them coming off that very tough loss to CM. They had a little bit more of a competitive game last week against BC High. Now they'll be looking to try and exact some big numbers in this game. I think their defense could thrive.
So here's my concern. And I give this to you a little bit tongue in cheek. You get you get Henry Hasselbeck back this week. You get Charlie Camella back for the first time this week.
Huge addition.
I would be concerned that they get up so big that the JV squad is in, and that's when they give up points. I legitimately, because that happened to me last week. I went Duxbury's defense. They were up like 5 scores at the half, and the 2s are in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden you give up some points. And when I don't have any metrics for scoring besides how many points you give up, all of a sudden your good defensive pick is kapooey.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if they put together.
I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Malden Cap has a few sneaky athletes, so
they gave BC High a game, I think, earlier this year. So yeah, they're
good
not
for
that
at least
bad.
one touchdown, I think, at the very least.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so I'll close my board with a wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Alex Martinez out of Quincy. So I'm going to be on the receiving end of Johnny's Nate Goff pick. Yeah, I think for a lot of the reasons that we kind of talked about with that pick, I think that's a matchup that's going to be tough for them, but I think he's going to see the ball coming his way quite a bit. So, yeah, give me Alex Martinez, and that rounds out the draft. So let's run them down real quick here. Johnny, quarterback Nate Goff out of Quincy, running backs Walter Rodriguez out of Brockton and Nolan Dickinson out of Silver Lake. Wide receivers Thomas Whiteside out of Oliver Ames and Chase Bailey out of Hingham, along with the West Bridgewater defense. Brendan, quarterback Michael Wildfire out of Cohasset, running backs Seneca Spencer out of Randolph, and Will LeBlanc out of Abington. Wide receivers Liam Callanan out of BC High, and Cam Sampson out of North Quincy, and then the Xaverian defense. I've got my quarterback here, Joe Schwartz out of Archbishop Williams, running backs Ryan Simonetti out of Abington and Nathan Uwe out of Milton, wide receivers Reed Bergameska out of Marshfield and Alex Martinez out of Quincy to go along with the Brockton defense. All right, week 7 fantasy draft is officially in the books. That'll do it for us. Again, like and subscribe below. And we will see you with another triple billing this weekend. Thursday night live from Easton. It's Mansfield and Oliver Ames on WBMS. And then back-to-back games on WATD Friday night. Our game of the week, Carver and Hull. I cannot tell you how excited I am to finally get my eyes on the Carver Crusaders amidst a historic season. And then on Saturday afternoon, Hingham and Silver Lake, 3:15 start there. So, and special start time on Friday, 6:30. So look out for that. That'll be on WATD as well. All right, for Brendan, for Johnny, I'm Quinn. We will see you next time on the WATD High School Fantasy Draft.